Inside a small mud brick house, two brothers, Victor and Chidi, sat on a wooden bench, their heads bent together, whispering about their future. "Victor," Chidi began, his voice laced with frustration, "we can't just stay here and keep farming like Papa. Look at Mama's hands. They are always rough from washing other people's clothes. We have to do something." Victor, the elder by 2 years, sighed deeply. "I know, Chidi, but what can we do? Nobody in this village will lend us money for university. Even Uncle Kelechi refused when Papa asked him to help." Chidi sat back, rubbing his palms together thoughtfully. "Then we have to help ourselves. If we work hard, save every naira we earn, we can pay for school. It might take years, but at least we will have a chance." Victor nodded slowly. He admired his younger brother's determination. "All right," he said, sitting up straight. "We will work. Any job we can find, we will do it. No more complaining. Deal?" "Deal," Chidi smiled, extending his hand. Victor shook it firmly, their shared determination sealing a path that would change their lives. The next morning, they rose up before the sun, their dreams of a better future driving them forward. They helped their father on the farm, carrying heavy bags of cassava to the market. In the evening, they sought odd jobs, fetching water for neighbors, assisting bricklayers, and carrying goods for traders. Life was hard, but the brothers didn't complain. They shared their meals of garri and soup with laughter, teasing each other about who worked harder that day. One evening, as they sat under the stars, their mother, Mama Ifoma, joined them. Her face was tired, but her smile was warm. "Victor and Chidi," she said, sitting on a low stool, "you boys have been working so hard these days. What are you saving for?" Chidi looked at Victor, silently asking if they should tell her. Victor nodded. "Mama," Victor began, "we want to go to the university. We don't want to stay here and struggle like this forever." My sons, I'm proud of you. But where will you find the money? Even with all your works, school fees are not small." "Mama," Chidi said confidently, "God will make a way. We will save little by little. One day, we will make it." Mama Ifoma wiped her eyes with the edge of her wrapper. "Amen, my children. Amen. I pray God blesses your efforts." Months turned into a year. The brothers saved every penny they could, but it still wasn't enough to cover even one semester's fee. They began to lose hope. But then, something unexpected happened. It was a bright Saturday morning when a white SUV drove into the village, raising a cloud of dust as it came to a stop near the market square. Curious, everybody gathered around, whispering amongst themselves. "Who is that?" someone asked. "I heard it's Chief Nnamdi's brother from America," another replied. Victor and Chidi stood at a distance, watching the crowd. They could not believe their ears when they heard someone shouted, "It's Uncle Emeka." "Uncle Emeka?" Chidi repeated, his voice filled with surprise. "Is it true? He's back?" "Yes," Victor said excitedly. "Let's go and see." The brothers pushed their way through the crowd until they stood in front of a tall, well-dressed man with a confident air. It was indeed their uncle Emeka, who had been living in the United States for over 15 years. He looked at them with a broad smile. "Victor, Chidi, you boys have grown so big, oh," he exclaimed, pulling them into a warm hug. "Uncle Emeka," they chorused, their voice filled with excitement. After exchanging greetings, Uncle Emeka invited them to their home for a family gathering that evening. That evening, the house was filled with activities as neighbors and relatives came to welcome Uncle Emeka. Finally, he had their time. "So tell me, what are you two doing with your lives now?" Victor hesitated, but Chidi spoke up. "We finished secondary school, Uncle, but we don't have money to go to the university. So, we've been working and saving. Uncle Emeka looked thoughtful, stroking his beard. That's good. You are hardworking boys, and I respect that. But it's not enough, is it? The brothers shook their heads, their eyes downcast. Uncle Emeka leaned forward, his voice lowering. I have an idea. I'll take one of you with me to America. You will go there to school there and build a better future for yourself and this family. Victor and Chidi exchanged glances, their hearts pounding with excitement. Victor, Uncle Emeka continued, since you are the eldest, you will come with me. Pack your things and get ready. We will leave in 3 months. Victor's eyes lit up with joy. Thank you, Uncle. Thank you so much. Chidi grabbed his brother's arm, laughing. Victor, this is your chance. Don't waste it. The weeks that followed Uncle Emeka's announcement were filled with excitement for Victor. He worked harder than ever, trying to make sure everything was in place for his departure. In between his tasks, he often daydreamed about life in America, attending a big university, working on clean streets, and starting a career that could help his family escape poverty. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Victor decided to share the big news with his girlfriend Ego. They met near the stream, where the air was cooler and the soft chirping of crickets filled the silence. Ego, Victor began, his voice brimming with excitement. You won't believe what happened. My uncle is taking me to America. I will finally get to further my education. Ego's eyes widened, her lips curving with a smile. Victor, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. She hugged him tightly, but then she pulled back. There was a flicker of something else in her expression. What is wrong? Victor asked, noticing her hesitation. It's just... Ego hesitated, lowering her gaze. Does this mean you will leave me behind? Victor smiled and took her hand. Ego, this is for us. When I make it, I'll come back for you. I promise. Ego nodded, but the uncertainty lingered in her eyes. They sat in silence for a while, watching the water flow gently in the stream. That night, they shared an intimate moment, driven by their emotions. 3 months passed quickly as Victor prepared for his trip. He noticed that Ego had been distant. She didn't come to see him as often, and when she did, she seemed distracted. One evening, just weeks before his departure, she came to his house looking unusually serious. Victor, she began, her voice trembling slightly. There's something I need to tell you. Victor, sensing the weight of her tone, felt a knot tighten in his stomach. What is it? Ego looked him in the eyes and said, I'm pregnant. The words hit Victor like a hammer. His mouth opened but no words came out. He stared at her, his mind racing. Pregnant? He finally managed to say. Yes, Ego replied, her voice firm. And my mother knows. She said you must come and marry me. Victor stood up and began pacing, running his hands through his hair. Ego, this can't happen now. My uncle will never allow it. Do you know what's at stake? Ego folded her hands. I didn't plan this, Victor, but it has happened. And I won't terminate this pregnancy. My mother said the same thing. Victor stopped and turned to her, desperation in his eyes. Ego, please, if my uncle finds out, I will lose everything. Can't we handle this later, after I've settled? Ego shook her head. Victor, I'm not hiding anything. You have to come and see my people. The next day, words of the pregnancy reached Uncle Emeka through the village gossips. Furious, he summoned Victor to his house. Victor, Uncle Emeka's voice boomed as Victor entered the living room. Is it true? Did you get this girl pregnant? Victor's throat was dry. He nodded reluctantly. Yes, uncle. It was a mistake. But A mistake? Uncle Emeka interrupted. Do you realize what you've done? You are supposed to be preparing for a new life, not starting a new family here. Victor hung his head in shame. Uncle, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Uncle Emeka paced the room, his anger barely contained. Well, it has happened, and now you must take responsibility. You will stay here, marry that girl, and take care of your child. Chidi will go in your place. Victor's head snapped. What? No, uncle, please. I've worked so hard for this chance. Don't take it away from me. Your actions took it away from you, not me, Uncle Emeka said sternly. This is not just about you, Victor. This is about being a man and doing the right thing. When Chidi heard the news, he was shocked. He found Victor sitting alone outside their house that evening, his head in his hands. Victor, Chidi called softly, sitting beside him. Is it true? You are not going anymore. Victor nodded silently. Chidi placed a hand on his brother's shoulders. I don't know what to say, but if this is what Uncle wants, we have to accept it. Victor looked up, his eyes filled with pain. Chidi, it was supposed to be me. I was the one with the dream. I don't know how to live with this. Chidi hesitated before speaking. Victor, you've always been my brother. If I go and make it, I'll never forget you. Victor nodded but said nothing. His heart was heavy with regret and resentment, but deep down, he knew he had no choice but to stay and face the consequences of his actions. As the day of Chidi's departure drew closer, Victor watched in silence as his younger brother packed his bag. On the morning of the journey, Uncle Emeka drove to their house to pick Chidi. Victor stood by the roadside, watching the car disappear into the distance. The ache in his heart was unbearable. His dream was gone, and his brother was on his way to a future that should have been his. The days after Chidi's departure felt like a fog to Victor. He moved through his tasks like a machine, helping his father on the farm during the day and lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling of the small apartment he shared with his wife, Ego. Her growing belly was a constant reminder of the life he had chosen, or rather, the life that had been chosen for him. One morning, as Victor carried firewood back from the farm, his mother called him from the doorway. Her voice carried a mix of hope and concern. Victor, you've been so quiet these days. You hardly talk, even during meals. My son, what is wrong? Victor set the firewood down with a thud and sighed. Mama, everything is wrong. Chidi is in America living my dream, and I'm here, stuck with responsibilities I didn't ask for. His mother frowned, resting a hand on his shoulder. Victor, life doesn't always go as we plan. But you are a father now, and that is not something to regret. Children are blessings, not burdens. Victor pulled away, frustration bubbling to the surface. Mama, you don't understand. I was supposed to leave this place. I was supposed to be the one to make it. Now, all I have is this farm, this bad luck child, and no future. His mother watched her son with a heavy heart. Victor, bitterness will only poison your soul. You must accept your path and make the best of it. Months turned into years, and Victor's resentment only grew. When Joe, his first son, was born, Victor felt no joy. Instead, he looked at the baby and saw the weight of his lost dreams and always referred to him as bad luck. The final blow came when news reached the family that Uncle Emeka had died in a car accident. Chidi, who had been living with him in America, sent words through a letter. Victor read the letter aloud to the family, his hands trembling. Uncle Emeka is gone. He is gone, and with him my last chance of ever leaving this place. Ego, sitting beside him, placed a hand on his arm. Victor, we still have each other. We have Joe. Life doesn't end because of one tragedy. Victor pulled his arm away sharply. You don't get it, Ego. My life ended the day you told me you were pregnant. Ego's face fell. Her eyes filled with tears. She said nothing and quietly took Joe into the bedroom, where she sobbed silently, her heart breaking for her son. As the years passed, Victor's bitterness began to take a more visible form. He openly favored the second son, Philip, born 2 years after Joe. While Joe wore second-hand clothes and attended local public schools, Philip was dressed in new outfits and sent to a private school in a nearby town. Joe, Victor barked one morning as the boy swept the compound. "Be quick with that broom. You don't want to be late with your useless school." Joe, now 10 years old, glanced up at his father, his small face tight with hurt. "Yes, Papa," he muttered, continuing his walks. Most times, he wondered what he has ever done wrong to his father to deserve such hatred. Ego came out of the house, wiping her hands on her wrapper. "Victor, why do you speak to him like that? He's your son." Victor scoffed. "My son? Joe is nothing but bad news. He's the reason my life is like this." Ego stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Victor, he's a child. He didn't ask to be born. Your anger should not be taken out on him." Victor waved her off. "Ego, I don't have time for your lectures. Philip is my future. Joe is just an unfortunate reminder of my past." Ego watched her husband walk away, her heart filled with sadness. She knelt beside Joe and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Don't mind your father," she said softly. "You are not bad news. You are my joy." Joe looked up at her, tears threatening to spill over. "Mama, why does Papa hate me?" Ego pulled him into a hug, her voice trembling. "He loves you, my son. He just doesn't know how to show it." Victor's hatred extended to Chidi, his brother, who had become very successful in America. Each Christmas, when Chidi sent gifts or money home, Victor would refuse to acknowledge them. "Papa," Philip asked one day, "why don't you talk to Uncle Chidi? He sent us so many things." Victor's face darkened. "Because he's not my brother. He stole my life, my dreams. Never forget that, Philip. That man is the enemy of progress." Philip nodded, absorbing his father's words. From that day, he began to look at Uncle Chidi's name with suspicion, seeing him as a rival instead of family. Joe, meanwhile, found solace in books and his mother's love. Despite his father's neglect, he excelled in school and eventually became a teacher at the local secondary school. But deep down, he longed for something more, an escape from the shadow of his father's bitterness. One Christmas, Chidi returned to the village for the first time in years, now a wealthy and influential man. He came with plans to visit Victor and mend their broken relationship. But when he arrived at the house, Victor met him at the gate, his face twisted with anger. "Leave my house," Victor shouted, pointing towards the gate. "Victor, my brother, I only came to greet you," Chidi said calmly, holding out his hands. "We are family." Victor spat on the ground. "Family? You are no family of mine. Take your money and go." Hot but unwilling to argue, Chidi left, promising himself he would one day find a way to fix the rift between him and his brother. Joe, tired of his stagnant life, made a bold decision. Against his father's strict orders, he went to visit his uncle Chidi. "Uncle," Joe said nervously as he stood in Chidi's well-furnished living room, "I know Papa doesn't want me to be here, but I need your help. I want to do more with my life." Chidi smiled warmly, placing a hand on Joe's shoulder. "You are brave for coming here, Joe. I see a lot of potential in you. Don't worry, I will help you." For the first time in his life, Joe felt a glimmer of hope. Joe's visit to his uncle Chidi marked a turning point in his life. For the first time, someone saw his potential without attaching it to his father's bitterness or the label of bad news. Chidi promised to support Joe in furthering his education and exploring opportunities beyond the confines of their village. "Joe," Chidi said during the conversation, "you are a hard-working young man. I've seen it in how you carry yourself despite everything. Your father's anger is not your fault, and I will help you build a future. But first, we must fix this family. Joe frowned. His hand clasped tightly on his laps. Uncle, Papa won't listen. He thinks you are his enemy. He even tells Philip that you are the reason for all his problems. Chidi sighed heavily. Your father is holding up to pain that has consumed him for too long. But we cannot move further as a family until he lets go of that anger. Will you help me talk to him? Joe hesitated, but eventually nodded. I will try, Uncle. But he doesn't listen to me either. That Christmas, Joe decided to arrange a family meeting. It was an audacious move, considering his father's stubborn nature, but Joe believed it was necessary. He spoke to his mother about it. Mama, Joe began as they sat on the veranda. I want to bring Papa and Uncle Chidi together to make peace. This fighting is tearing our family apart. Mama Ifeoma smiled sadly. My son, you have a good heart, but your father is not an easy man to persuade. What if he refuses? Joe's face was determined. He will come, Mama. I will find a way. On the day of the meeting, Joe approached his father, who was sitting under the mango tree, sharpening his machete. Papa, I need you to come to the family meeting I've arranged, Joe said cautiously. A meeting? With who? With Uncle Chidi, Joe replied, bracing for his father's reaction. Victor froze, his hand gripping the machete tightly. I told you never to mention that man's name in my house. Papa, Joe said firmly. This fight has gone on long enough. You are my father and he's your brother. Can't we at least try to make peace? Victor slammed the machete on the ground, his voice rising. You don't understand anything, Joe. That man took everything from me. Everything. Joe stepped closer, his voice calm but steady. No, Papa. You lost your chances because of your own decision. Uncle Chidi didn't take anything from you. You gave it away. Victor's eyes burned with anger, but Joe didn't back down. Papa, you spent years blaming everyone else for your pain, but it hasn't changed anything. Please, come to the meeting. For Mama's sake, for Philip, and for me. Victor stared at Joe for a long moment before finally looking away. Fine, but I am not making any promise. The meeting took place at Chidi's home. Chidi greeted Victor with a mixture of hope and excitement, but Victor remained stiff and cold. The family gathered in the living room. Mama Ifeoma sitting close to Victor, while Joe stood next to his uncle. Philip, sensing the tension, remained silent. Chidi began. Brother, thank you for coming. I know this hasn't been easy for you. Victor folded his arms. Say what you have to say and make it quick. Chidi sighed. Victor, I never meant to take anything from you. When Uncle Emeka asked me to go in your place, I didn't want to, but he insisted because of the situation. I've carried this guilt for years, but I've also wished you would understand that I only wanted the best for us. Victor scoffed. Best for us? You went to travel in my place and left me here to rot. You never looked back. That's not true, Chidi said earnestly. I've sent money, gifts and letters, but every time you pushed me away. I've wanted to help you, Victor, but you shut me out. Joe stepped in. Papa, Uncle Chidi has tried to mend things, so you've just been too angry to see it. It's time to let go of the past. We are a family now. Victor's face softened lightly, but he remained silent. Mama Ifeoma placed a hand on his arm. Victor, your brother is here, willing to make peace. Do you really want to carry this anger to your grave? Finally, Victor spoke, his voice low. You don't know what it feels like to watch your dreams die. To know that you could have been someone else, somewhere else. It eats at you every day. Chidi's eyes filled with tears. Victor, I do understand. I've carried my own regrets, but I've also tried to move forward. Let's move forward together. Victor looked at his brother, then at his family. Slowly he nodded. I am tired of this fight. I don't know if I can forget, but I'll try to forgive. Chidi extended his hands, and after a tense moment, Victor shook it. The family breathed a collective sigh of relief. Joe watched as his father and uncle reconciled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Later, Victor pulled Joe aside. "Joe," Victor began, his voice thick with emotion, "I owe you an apology. I've treated you badly for so many years, blaming you for things that weren't your fault. You are my son, and I'm proud of you. Thank you, Papa. That means everything to me." For the first time in years, the family came together as one. Chidi kept his promise to help Joe, ensuring he had the resources to further his education and build a better future. Victor, though still haunted by his past, began to heal. He spent more time with both his sons, determined to mend the relationship he had nearly destroyed. Months passed after the family meeting and the reconciliation of Victor and Chidi. For the first time in years, the two brothers were seen talking and even laughing together in the marketplace. One afternoon, Chidi called Joe to his house for a conversation. "Joe," Chidi began, holding him a steaming cup of tea, "you remind me so much of your father when we were younger. Ambitious, determined, and full of energy." Joe smiled shyly. "Thank you, Uncle. I just want to make something of my life." Chidi nodded. "You will. I've been thinking about sending you to Lagos first, to work with a business associate of mine. It will give you the experience you need before we explore opportunities abroad. What do you think?" Joe's face lit up. "Uncle, I would love that, and I'm ready to learn and work hard." Chidi smiled warmly. "Good. Start preparing. We'll talk about the details soon." Meanwhile, Victor was making small but meaningful changes in his household. For the first time, he began spending time with Joe, asking him about his work at the secondary school and even helping him with small projects. One evening, as Joe and his father sat outside under the stars, his father spoke up. "Joe," he said, his voice hesitant, "I know I've been a terrible father to you. I let my bitterness take control and I hurt you in ways I can't take back. I want you to know that I'm truly sorry." Joe looked at his father, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. "Papa, I've waited a long time to hear that. Thank you." Victor placed a hand on Joe's shoulder. "You're a good son, better than I deserved. I'm proud of the man you are becoming." Years later, the family gathered again during Christmas, this time under happier circumstances. The house was filled with laughter, the smell of jollof rice wafting through the air, and the chatter of children playing outside. Victor stood by the doorway, watching as his two sons joked together, their bond finally restored. "Victor," Chidi said, walking up beside him, "you have a beautiful family." Victor smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I owe that to you, Chidi. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself." Chidi clapped him on the shoulder. "That's what family is for." As the sun set, the two brothers stood side by side, their past finally behind them, and in that moment, Victor realized that while life hadn't turned out the way he had imagined, it had given him something even more valuable, a chance to heal, to love, and to start again. The end. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. I'm glad you did. Please like this video, drop your thoughts in the comment section, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories like this one. See you in the next video. Bye.